Rain hammered the streets of Ashford like a warning, bouncing off puddles and neon signs that flickered in the cold November night. The doors of the Rusted Chain, a biker bar notorious for its rowdy reputation, slammed open. A boy burst in, drenched, mud streaked across his cheeks. He carried a tiny bundle, his baby sister, her cries muffled against his soaked jacket. His eyes were wide, raw with panic and desperation. "Help, please, they're coming," he yelled, voice cracking like brittle glass. The bar fell silent. Conversation died mid-sentence. The bikers, some leaning on the polished wood counter, others sprawled across cracked leather booths, froze. They had seen plenty of trouble, but nothing like this. The boy dropped onto the floor, trembling. They took our mom. And they said, they're taking her too if I don't do what they want." His small hands clutched the baby closer, shaking. A man with a thick beard and tattoos climbing his arms leaned forward from the bar. Hawk, the bar's unofficial leader, his voice low and measured, spoke first. "Easy, kid, slow down. What happened?" I don't know what to do," the boy stammered. "They said if I don't give them my mom's money, they'll hurt her. And my sister." The room, once filled with noise and laughter, now hummed with tension. The bikers exchanged glances. Eyes hardened, jaws clenched. Some of them had scars from fights they'd never talk about, lives spent defending what they loved. And now, here was a child, terrified, carrying the most innocent life imaginable. Hawk pushed off the bar, leather jacket creaking, boots thudding against the floor. "All right, everyone, shut it down. No one leaves." A ripple ran through the bar, dozens of riders standing, leather patches catching the dim neon light, fists tightening, eyes locking onto the door. Every instinct in the room screamed the same message: no one hurts a kid under our watch. The boy's trembling voice broke again. Please help her, please." Hawk knelt to his level, hand gentle on the boy's shoulder. "You did the right thing coming here. You're not alone. Not anymore." From the back, another rider, Sable, stepped forward, arms crossed, eyes scanning the boy's tiny bundle. "She's just a baby," Sable muttered, voice rough but soft beneath the surface. "And they threatened her." The boy nodded, tears cutting tracks through the mud and rain on his face. "Yes, they said if I don't give them the money, they'll take her too." Every biker in the room shifted instinctively. Silence hung heavy. Then Hawk rose to his full height. "All right, brothers. Time to remind the world why we don't let fear win. Let's move." A chorus of engines rumbled outside, leather creaking, and the entire Rusted Chain bar seemed to breathe as one living, protective entity. The boy looked up, confused and amazed. "Wait, you're going to help us?" Hawk's eyes softened slightly. "Kid, we don't leave people like you behind." In that instant, the boy realized, this wasn't just a biker bar. It was a family. And tonight, they were his family too. The roar of engines echoed through Ashford as the Rusted Chain crew mobilized. Hawk led the charge, his leather jacket soaked, rain streaking down the grooves of his weathered face. Sable rode beside him, eyes scanning the darkened streets, muscles tense like coiled steel. The boy clutched his baby sister tightly, swaying with the bumps of the bikes, muffled cries of the infant mixing with the thunder of the storm. "They've got a head start," Sable muttered, voice grim. "But they won't get far." Hawk's jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter. Tonight, they learn what happens when you threaten family." The streets blurred under the rain, reflections of neon signs and taillights dancing across the slick asphalt. Every puddle sent splashes into the air, soaking boots and tires alike. Yet the riders pressed on, coordinated, precise, a moving fortress of leather and steel protecting the most vulnerable life in the city. The boy whimpered as a pothole jolted him. I'm scared." Hawk glanced back. "Good," he said, voice low but firm. "Fear keeps you alive. But trust us, we've got you. Nothing's getting through us tonight." The child's small hands gripped tighter around the bundle, and Sable reached over to steady him. "We're not just chasing them," she said quietly. "We're taking this street back. No one hurts your family on our watch." Up ahead, the silhouette of a dark van appeared, headlights slicing through the sheets of rain. Hawk signaled the crew to fan out, forming a protective barrier around the boy and his sister. The van swerved, trying to cut them off, but every movement was anticipated, every path blocked by the rider's experience. The boy's wide eyes tracked the scene. Are they going to hurt us?" Hawk's expression hardened. "Not if we get to them first. You remember what I said, we don't leave people behind." Sable glanced down at the infant. "They don't even know who they're messing with," she said, teeth gritted. "This isn't just a chase. It's a warning. Nobody crosses the rusted chain and gets away with it." The van tried to accelerate, but the bikers kept pace, weaving through the rain-slicked streets like shadows. Every bump and swerve tested the boy's grip, but Hawk kept the pace steady, reassuring without words that they were his shield. Suddenly, the van swerved violently into a side alley, tires skidding. Hawk and Sable followed instantly, engines screaming over the rain's roar. The alley was narrow, littered with debris, puddles reflecting the flashes of neon and headlights. But Hawk, led them with precision, protecting every inch of the boy's fragile safety. The van stopped abruptly at the alley's end. Two men jumped out, rough hands reaching for the child. Hawk's eyes narrowed. Step 1, they think they're in control. Step 2, we remind them who's boss. The bikers fanned out around the van, engines silent now but presence immense. Shadows moved in perfect synchronization, blocking every escape route. The boy's small body trembled in Hawk's arms, but the infant calmed slightly, sensing the protective force enveloping them. "Don't move," Hawk called. His voice carried authority that made the attackers pause mid-step. Every rider's stare was a wall of leather and steel, unwavering, unyielding. The rain poured harder, thunder shaking the rooftops. The men hesitated, realizing they were outmatched, not by weapons, not by numbers, but by the raw, unwavering moral strength of the riders protecting innocence. The boy whispered, almost in awe, You're really going to save us?" Hawk's gaze softened, just for a moment. "Kid, you already called us here. That's all it takes. We answer. Always." And with that, the bikers moved in, a living storm of righteous fury, surrounding the van, ensuring that this night, this chase, would end with justice and protection, not fear and loss. The narrow alley seemed to shrink under the storm, rain slashing sideways as if trying to erase the world. Hawk's crew formed a perfect circle around the van. Engines were silent now, but the power hummed in the wet asphalt, in the leather and steel that made up this protective fortress. Marcy Blake, no, the waitress from a few nights ago, would have been proud, but tonight it was a boy and his baby sister, and every rider's eyes burned with determination. The two men from the van stepped back, glancing at each other nervously. The street was empty except for the bikers, a living wall. Hawk advanced first, shoulders broad, face drenched, eyes narrowed like twin storm clouds. "Step closer," he said, voice calm but terrifyingly controlled. "And it's not going to end how you think." One of the men, the taller, heavier one, sneered. "You think a bunch of bikers can stop us? Kid's got something we want, and you're in the way." Hawk shook his head, a wry, almost tired smile on his lips. "Kid's got something we're not letting anyone touch. That's all you need to know." The boy clutched his baby sister closer, trembling. "Please, don't hurt them," he whispered, voice tiny but desperate. Hawk paused, eyes softening briefly. "No," he said. "We don't hurt the weak. But we make sure the wrong people learn." The rain pelted harder, thunder rolling overhead as if echoing the tension below. Sable stepped forward, boots splashing in puddles, arms crossed. "This is your only warning. Drop your hands. Leave the kid alone. Walk away." The attackers exchanged glances. One of them, the smaller man, laughed nervously. "You think we're scared of a few leather jackets? We've done worse." Hawk's gaze hardened. "We've done worse too," to protect what matters. A sharp whistle from the alley corner, and suddenly the rusted chain crew's presence seemed to double. From behind the van, 2 more riders emerged, boots heavy, weapons holstered but ready. Every movement coordinated, precise, rehearsed through years of code and brotherhood. The bikers were a wall no man could breach tonight. The taller man tried to lunge for the boy, but Hawk was faster. In one fluid motion, he grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, and sent him sprawling into the rain-soaked pavement. Sable intercepted the smaller man, pushing him back toward the van with force that left him breathless and stunned. The boy's wide eyes followed every move. He had never seen courage like this, not in movies, not in books. Real strength, real loyalty, real protection. And in that moment, he realized he wasn't alone. Not anymore. "You called us," Hawk said to the boy, voice carrying over the rain. "And we came. That's all it takes. Anyone who tries to harm you, they'll learn quickly what happens when you mess with family." Thunder rolled again, louder this time. The attackers froze, drenched, terrified, realizing the fight wasn't about guns or fists. It was about principle, morality, brotherhood. And in this alley, the bikers' moral strength towered over them like a fortress. The taller man stammered, We didn't know." Hawk's eyes bored into him. "Then now you know. Leave. And never come near a child again." The smaller man, shaking violently, nodded. They scrambled back to the van and sped off into the rain, tires screeching, leaving a trail of water and fear. The boy sagged with relief, tears mixing with rain. Hawk lifted him gently, resting the child on his hip while the baby sister gurgled softly. "See," Hawk said, voice low, almost gentle. "Safe. That's all that matters." Sable placed a hand on Hawk's shoulder. "They won't be back." Hawk nodded, eyes scanning the dark streets. "Not tonight. And if they are, we'll be here. Always." Marcy, standing on the sidelines, couldn't help but marvel at the display. This wasn't about violence for its own sake, it was about protecting innocence, about courage and loyalty in the face of real danger. The boy looked up at Hawk, awe in his wide eyes. Thank you. All of you." Hawk smiled faintly, weathered and tired. "Kid, you did the right thing running here. That's all it takes. Courage sometimes is just knowing who will stand with you." And for the first time since the rain began, the alley seemed lighter, almost quiet, the storm outside still raging, but the battle inside already won. The alley slowly returned to an eerie calm. Rain pattered against the asphalt, leaving shimmering reflections of neon signs and flickering streetlights. Hawk carried the boy into the warmth of the rusted chain bar, baby sister cradled carefully in his other arm. Marcy moved forward, fetching dry towels and blankets, while the rest of the crew spread out, checking every corner of the bar for potential threats. The place smelled of wet leather, engine oil, and now, a faint scent of milk and baby powder from the little one. The boy sank into a chair, drenched, shivering, but clutching his sister as if she were the only anchor keeping him tethered to the world. Hawk knelt beside him, speaking softly, his deep voice steadying the child's racing heart. "It's all right, kid. You're safe now. Nobody's touching you. Not tonight, not ever." Sable perched on the bar edge, boots wet, eyes scanning the windows. "We've got eyes on every street around here," she said. "If anyone comes near, they'll regret it. Nobody threatens family in my town." Marcy wrapped the infant in a warm blanket, softly humming a tune that reminded her of her own childhood. The baby's cries dwindled, replaced by gentle coos. The boy's shoulders relaxed slightly, though the tremors in his small frame didn't vanish completely. Hawk leaned back, eyes on the boy. "You did the hardest thing tonight. You ran here. You asked for help. That's courage, kid. Not everyone can do that." I just wanted them to stop hurting her," the boy whispered. His voice cracked, small and raw. I couldn't protect her alone." "You don't have to," Hawk said firmly. "And that's why we're here. You weren't alone, not now, not ever. The crew gathered around, forming a protective circle, each rider exuding strength, loyalty, and a silent promise. Anyone who hurt this child would face consequences no one could ignore. Leather jackets gleamed wet under the bar's dim light, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Not a hint of humor or playfulness now, only the serious weight of moral justice. Marcy poured hot cocoa into a cup for the boy. "Drink this," she said softly. "It'll warm you up." The boy sipped, eyes wide, almost forgetting the fear that had gripped him minutes ago. Sable crouched beside him, voice gentle yet commanding. "Listen, kid. You showed more bravery than most grown-ups I know tonight. That takes guts, standing up, asking for help, trusting people you don't even know. That's what makes heroes." The boy blinked at her, astonished. Heroes. Hawk smiled faintly. "You called us here. You trusted us. That's heroism in its purest form. And now, you've given us the honor of protecting you. That's what matters." The storm outside continued, rain lashing the windows, but inside the bar, a sense of warmth and safety prevailed. The boy's small hand brushed against Hawk's leather jacket, gripping it unconsciously. Hawk's expression softened, a flicker of emotion breaking through the hardened exterior that years of life on the road had forged. For the first time that night, the boy laughed softly, a sound so small yet so powerful. You really protected us." Hawk nodded. "Always. Family isn't just blood. It's who stands by you when the world goes dark. And tonight, you found yours." The baby stirred in her brother's arms, tiny fingers grasping at the blanket. Marcy smiled, tucking them both safely in. "They're safe now," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The bikers gathered around the table, helmets set aside, eyes softening as they watched the children. In the chaos, the rain, the violence, they had found a reminder of why they fought: protection, loyalty, moral strength. It wasn't about ego or territory. It was about standing up when no one else would. Hawk glanced at the boy again. "Remember this, kid. Courage isn't about never being scared. It's about asking for help when you are. And knowing who will answer. That's the real power." Outside, the storm began to taper, rain slowing to a drizzle. The rusted chain bar was a haven now, a sanctuary forged from leather, steel, and the unwavering moral compass of its riders. And within its walls, a boy and his sister learned that sometimes, family isn't chosen by blood, it's chosen by courage, protection, and loyalty. The storm outside had softened to a persistent drizzle, but inside the rusted chain, tension still hummed like electricity through the air. Hawk, Sable, and the rest of the crew had stationed themselves strategically near the exits and windows, eyes sharp, every muscle coiled, alert. The boy clutched his baby sister, still shivering, but a newfound sense of hope flickering in his gaze. Then the unmistakable roar of engines cut through the drizzle outside. The attackers had regrouped, circling the block, emboldened by the thought that the children had been left vulnerable. Their van's headlights glinted through the wet windows, shadows moving like predators stalking prey. Hawk's jaw tightened. "They're back," Sable said, voice low but filled with steel. "And they've got backup." Hawk's eyes scanned the alley and street beyond. Every rider's fingers twitched near their bikes, ready to leap into action. "Everyone stay calm. We don't attack recklessly. But we don't back down either." The boy's voice trembled. They said they'd take her, if I didn't do what they wanted. What if? His words dissolved into a whimper. Hawk stepped forward, placing a hand firmly on his shoulder. "Kid, look at me. They don't scare us. And they won't touch you. Ever. You called us, and we answered. That's how it works. Courage calls courage." The van skidded into the alley, engine growling. Two men jumped out, fists clenched, but their faces revealed hesitation. They had underestimated the rusted chain before, but now they were staring down a wall of leather, steel, and unshakable resolve. Sable advanced, boots splashing in puddles, her silhouette sharp in the dim light. "This is your only chance. Walk away. Don't touch them." Or you'll see what happens when you threaten family. The taller man laughed nervously. Family? You're a bunch of bikers. We. Hawk stepped forward, his voice a razor cutting through the rain. You. Leave. Or you leave broken. No warnings next time. The attackers hesitated, realizing the odds. They had guns tucked under their jackets, but something in Hawk's posture, in the silent, deadly force of the entire Rusted Chain crew, made them falter. These weren't just bikers. These were guardians. Every movement precise, every glance calculated. Moral strength wrapped around them like armor. The smaller man lunged at the boy, but Sable intercepted, grabbing his wrist and twisting it behind his back. Try that again, and you won't stand up, she said, voice low but lethal. The man crumpled, realizing this wasn't a fight he could win. Hawk's eyes swept the remaining men. Do you see them? That's courage. That's life worth protecting. And tonight, you learn a lesson you'll never forget. The attackers backed away, the van's engine revving. They retreated into the wet streets, swallowed by darkness and fear, leaving the alley empty except for the bikers and the children. The boy exhaled shakily, eyes wide. You really protected us. Hawk crouched down to his level. Kid, you did the right thing. You asked for help when you needed it. That's bravery. And now, you know what real loyalty looks like. Marcy stepped forward, gently wrapping the boy and his sister in blankets. You're safe now, she whispered. All of you. The bikers exchanged quiet nods, unspoken respect passing between them. No one needed to say it. Tonight, they had reminded the world that protection, loyalty, and moral strength weren't just words. They were action. The rain began to ease, leaving the alley wet but calm. The neon from the Rusted Chain sign reflected in puddles, like shards of hope glinting in the darkness. Hawk stood, placing a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. Remember this night. Remember courage. And remember that you're never truly alone when people choose to stand with you. The boy nodded, eyes shining through tears. I won't forget. And in that quiet moment, beneath the remnants of the storm, the Rusted Chain had done more than protect. They had restored faith, given hope, and shown that true strength lies in standing for those who cannot stand for themselves. The alley was soaked, puddles reflecting fractured neon, rain still dripping in lazy sheets from the rooftops, but inside the Rusted Chain bar, warmth radiated like a protective shield. Hawk, Sable, and the rest of the crew had guided the boy and his sister back inside, their presence filling the room with unspoken security. The storm outside had passed, leaving a wet, trembling city in its wake, but inside, the emotional storm was only beginning to settle. Hawk crouched beside the boy, placing a large, calloused hand over the trembling child's. You're safe now, he said softly, his voice a steady anchor. No one's touching you. Not tonight. Not ever. You understand. The boy nodded, though his eyes were still wide, the weight of fear and relief battling inside him. I thought we were alone. You weren't alone, Hawk said. And you never will be again. You have people who will stand with you, no matter what. Sable moved to the side, speaking gently to the boy while checking that his sister was warm and calm. Courage isn't about not being scared, she said. It's about asking for help when you need it, and having people show up. That's what you did tonight. That's heroism. The boy glanced around at the bikers, towering figures of leather and steel, some with tattoos snaking up their arms, faces weathered from life's battles, and felt an overwhelming sense of awe. They were frightening and powerful, yes, but they radiated protection. Every movement, every glance, spoke of loyalty and moral strength. Why would you help us? The boy asked, voice small, almost breaking. You don't even know us. Hawk leaned back slightly, eyes scanning the room, faint traces of rain dripping from his jacket. Because someone has to, he said simply. Because the world doesn't always do what's right. But we can. Tonight, you reminded us why we do this. That's worth everything. Marcy, kneeling beside the boy, wrapped the baby sister snugly in a blanket. The infant's eyes blinked sleepily, coos of comfort barely audible over the rain now dripping from the bar's roof. "You're okay now," she whispered. "All of you." The boy exhaled shakily, relief finally breaking through the panic. I thought we'd lost everything. I thought no one would help." Hawk's gaze softened. "You didn't lose everything. You just found the people who matter. Courage calls courage, kid. And you found it tonight, in yourself, and in us." The bar's neon lights flickered overhead, casting warm glows across rain-slicked floors and leather jackets. The rusted chain crew formed a loose circle around the children, silent yet protective, a tangible presence that spoke louder than any words. It wasn't about pride, or territory, or revenge. It was about moral action, the defense of the innocent, and the unspoken promise that some battles are worth fighting, no matter the risk. The boy looked up at Hawk again. I want to be brave like you someday," he whispered. Hawk smiled faintly, weathered and kind. "You already are. You called for help when you needed it, and you trusted the right people. That's bravery most adults can't even muster. Tonight, you taught all of us something. Courage isn't about fists, it's about heart." Sable crouched to adjust the baby blanket. "And loyalty," she added. "Standing with those who can't defend themselves, that's what family really is." The boy's small hands grasped Hawk's leather-clad forearm. I won't forget. Ever." Hawk's eyes glinted with the weight of experience and pride. "Good. Because neither will we. Tonight, you became part of something bigger, a family that protects, that stands up, that fights for what's right. And that's a lesson worth remembering forever." Outside, the drizzle eased, the streets gleaming with reflections of neon and rain. Inside, the rusted chain was alive with quiet relief, moral victory, and the knowledge that tonight, they had done more than survive. They had protected innocence, restored hope, and reminded themselves why their code mattered above all else. The boy smiled faintly, clutching his sister, feeling the first real warmth since the night began. He was safe. They were safe. And in this small corner of the city, justice, courage, and loyalty had triumphed. The night finally settled over Ashford. Rain had stopped, leaving streets glistening with reflections of neon lights and puddles shimmering like liquid glass. Inside the rusted chain bar, warmth and calm replaced the chaos of hours before. Hawk, Sable, and the crew sat scattered around the room, boots wet, leather jackets glistening, but eyes soft as they watched the boy cradle his baby sister. Hawk knelt beside them one last time. "Kid, tonight you learned what courage means. It's not about never being afraid. It's about asking for help when you need it, and trusting the right people to answer." The boy's eyes brimmed with tears. I was so scared. I didn't know if anyone would come." "You weren't alone," Hawk said. "And you never will be again. Family isn't always about blood. It's about loyalty, protection, and standing up when it matters. Tonight, you found family." Sable placed a hand on Hawk's shoulder. "And they reminded us why we do this. Protecting the innocent. It's not just a choice, it's a code. One we live by, no matter the storm." Marcy handed the boy a warm cup of cocoa. "You're safe now. All of you." The boy looked around at the bikers, awe and gratitude shining in his eyes. I won't forget this. Ever. You, all of you, saved us." Hawk nodded, voice calm but full of conviction. "Good. Because tonight, you reminded us that courage and loyalty exist in every corner, even in the smallest hearts. Protecting those who can't protect themselves, that's why we ride. That's what keeps us human in a world that forgets kindness." The baby stirred, tiny hands reaching for her brother. The boy hugged her close, feeling the weight of fear lift, replaced by safety, hope, and the unspoken bond of the rusted chain crew, a family forged in leather, steel, and unwavering moral strength. Outside, the storm had passed completely, leaving only the quiet hum of the city. Inside, a boy and his sister had found protection. Bikers had reaffirmed their code, and the night ended with the silent understanding that courage, loyalty, and moral action can change lives forever. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's facing it with someone by your side. Loyalty isn't just for friends or blood, it's standing up for those who cannot defend themselves. Family can be chosen through action, protection, and trust. True strength lies in moral conviction, not in fists or weapons. And sometimes, a single act of bravery can inspire an entire world to stand up for what's right.